Hey, and welcome back to the channel. It's Jeff here. And on today's video, we're going to be talking about a discipline that I think will help you get to that next level of success. I'm talking about that next level in any aspect of life, whatever it is that you're trying to get better at. Now, when you stick with me to the end of the show, I'm going to be breaking down a very critical warning that I think that you need to make sure that you pay attention to so you get the most out of this discipline every time you exercise it. Now, we're going to get to that in just a second here, but before we do that, I just want to encourage you or remind you to sign up to my Ignite newsletter. Now, this is a free newsletter to you, and when you subscribe to it, I just want to let you know that I'm not going to put you in a funnel. I'm not going to try to sell you anything. It's just my way of communicating with you so you don't miss a thing, so you stay up to date on everything that we're doing here. Now, all you need to do to sign up to that newsletter is simply go to jeffjarena.com/newsletter. And I'll put the link here in the description of this video. So with all that, let's get right into the video. Okay, so as I start to talk about this discipline today, I want to first start by sharing a quick story with you. And just so you know, it's from something that my son and I have had the opportunity to experience over the past 2 years. Now, as I share this story with you, chances are you're already going to know what I'm talking about. And more than likely, you probably have already applied this discipline at one point in your life, probably even multiple times. But if you'll stick with me through the show, I'm going to give you some actionable steps and a warning that I think that you need to be paying close attention to that I think will help you master this discipline faster and easier. So the story I want to share with you really started about 2 years ago. And it came from my son starting to actually play lacrosse. And he never played this before. I never played it before. In fact, when I was growing up, I played tennis and basketball, and then I played golf for fun, things like that. But when I was growing up in the 70s and 80s and playing sports, the word lacrosse was never even in my vocabulary. I played sports in Texas, and we just never heard of that sport. Nobody ever played it. Now, I'm sure they played it up north, but I never heard the game lacrosse, never heard that word at all growing up. And the first time I ever heard of it was probably about 15 years ago. But now what I know about this, it's an amazing sport. It's so fun to play. And I will tell you that if they would have had this when I was growing up, I definitely would have played the sport. But I want to get really to the story here because as he started to play lacrosse and me, I was actually coaching it. I've been coaching his team now for 4 seasons. This is for 2 years. And I started out as an assistant coach, and the past season or two, I've been the head coach. Now, as he started to play, this is something that I had to learn myself, not just how to coach it, but how to play it. Now, I will say this, that in lacrosse, a lot of the same principles or strategies are the same as, I really compare this to playing soccer, playing basketball, and playing tennis, because a lot of it is the same thing. As he started to learn how to play lacrosse, it was very apparent to me that the most difficult thing about lacrosse was catching the lacrosse ball, okay? And as I really asked a lot of people, asked a lot of other coaches, a lot of other players, I asked them, what's been the most difficult thing for you to learn and to coach? They all said the same thing, catching the lacrosse ball. Now, before I get into the story here of really how this discipline has been exercised and implemented, I think, in his life and mine as well, and I think how it implements or really how it applies to you in your life, I want to just share real quick here why I think the game of lacrosse and specifically catching the lacrosse ball is so difficult. And if you're listening to this podcast, you're probably not going to see me doing this, but if you'd like to see this, then I would encourage you to subscribe to my YouTube channel, and all you need to do is just go to jeffjarena.com, go to the very bottom of the footer, and you'll see that little YouTube there. Just go there and you subscribe there. Now, if you're watching this on the YouTube channel, you're actually going to see me show you this right now. But as you can see here, I've got my son's lacrosse stick right here, and you can see we've got the head right here, the head of the lacrosse stick. You've got this net. And I'm just going to try to describe this as best as I can for those of you listening to this podcast. And I've got here in this example, I've got the lacrosse ball here. And you see this net here, right? Now, the lacrosse net, in comparison to the size of the lacrosse ball, you really don't have a lot of surface area of the lacrosse stick. Okay, I think this is probably the number one reason, or one of the top two reasons why this is so difficult to catch a lacrosse ball. Okay, at least to learn it early on. Okay, the surface area of the lacrosse net is so much smaller in comparison to the lacrosse ball. Okay, and if you compare that to the size of a baseball glove or a softball glove or even a tennis racket, there's much more surface area for that in that sport. But the lacrosse net, the surface area is a lot smaller. Okay, that's the first thing. The second thing is, I'm going to put this lacrosse ball down real quick. The second thing is, you've got this little, probably 1 inch to 2 inch little section or area where the lacrosse net, the frame of that net, attaches to the shaft of the lacrosse stick. As you hold this, you can't go higher than that 1 inch, 2 inch area. In fact, legally, when you're playing lacrosse, you can't even go on top of that, okay? So you've got this at least 1 inch to 2 inch area that's above your hand, and then you add the frame of the lacrosse stick that's above your hand. When you compare that to playing baseball or softball, that glove is on your hand. So when you add this 1 inch to 2 inch little area and you're trying to catch the lacrosse ball, in addition to having that small surface area, it really plays with your mind. And it really makes catching the lacrosse ball very difficult. Now, you would think that, okay, well, maybe it's not that difficult if you have, really good hand-eye coordination, which my son has, and I feel like I have. You would think it wouldn't be that tough. It wouldn't be that difficult. But in actuality, it really is. Now, as we were learning how to play here, as my son was learning how to play lacrosse, and as I was learning myself, because I had to learn as well, so I was able to coach his team, coach him and coach all the other players on the team. I had to make sure that I was able to do this myself and to give them instructional tips. So as we started out 4 seasons ago, 2 years ago, when he first started playing, if we were to go out there, between the two of us, and we were to go out there, and let's say we're going to be passing and catching back and forth here, I'd say 100 balls. If we were to do that 100 times, the best that we could do was probably 10 times we would catch it between the two of us. And that was a stretch. Most of the time, we would only catch about 5 of those balls. Now, that's 5%. That's pretty bad, right? And I'll be honest with you, it was very frustrating because I felt like, okay, my son has really good hand-eye coordination. I feel like I do in playing tennis and coaching tennis and playing basketball, coaching basketball, and then coaching and playing soccer. I'm like, okay, I have pretty good hand-eye coordination. And in terms of golf, I've shot in the low 80s before. I feel like, okay, I feel like I'm pretty good. But lacrosse, out of everything that I've ever played, every sport is probably, I would say, catching the lacrosse ball is probably the toughest thing that I've ever had to learn. And in lacrosse, catching is very important. I mean, this is a skill that you have to have. And so we would go out there all the time, go out there, catching and passing and all this sort of stuff. And it took a while before he really got good at it. Now, if we fast forward now to 2 years later, I can tell you right now, he's probably catching about 80 to 90% of those balls. We're talking about, out of 100, we're talking about 80 to 90 times he's catching it. And I'm talking about very easily. And whether it's 10 feet away, 20 feet away, if I'm, at a normal easy pace or I'm kind of speeding up or whatever angle, he's catching it 80 to 90 times out of 100. And in game situations, I'm talking about it, different speeds, different angles, different elevations, with all this traffic around him of all the other players on his team and all the other sticks of the other opponents and all this sort of stuff, all this chaos around him, he's catching about 75 to 80% of the time. Now, again, if you compare that to 2 years ago, and if you think about that, to me, it's amazing. I mean, it's incredible. In fact, when we're actually doing this, every time I catch it, I'm like, wow, How is this so much easier now than it was 2 years ago? And every time we do this, every time we go out there, it seems like we're getting better and better and better. And it reminds me of this discipline, the discipline that I really want to drill down on here. And you probably already know what it is before I even tell you, because I share the story with you. But the discipline here is practice. It's repetition. This essential discipline of getting in those reps of whatever it is that you're trying to get better at will help you get better quicker, easier. And I would even say this, that intuitively, instinctively, because as I see my son play now in the season right now, I mean, he's just off the charts, just the way he is right now. I mean, scoring, passing, picking up ground balls, catching it, everything he's doing, playing defense, everything. It seems like to me that the game has slowed down in his mind. Now, it's a very fast sport, but he's understanding it so much better because he's seen it so many times. He's practiced it so much. He's put in all those repetitions that now the game is slower to him. Everything that he's doing now is almost instinctively. It's intuitively. In fact, I asked him one time, I said, "Hey, son, why do you think we're able to catch it now? Why do you think you're able to score more and pick up the ground balls easier? Why do you think this is happening that way?" He said, "I don't know, Dad. I just don't even think about it. I just do it." There it is. And he's very young. And for someone like that to talk about a game of lacrosse in something that was very difficult for him and I 2 years ago, and now he's just doing it instinctively, it just, to me, hammers home the point of this discipline of practice. And so I wanted to share that story with you because for me, again, it reminds me that you got to put in the reps, and whatever it is that you're doing, you got to put in the reps. And it also reminds me that it's one of the biggest secrets that professional athletes and individuals at the top of their profession have. It's why their sport or their profession or their skill set looks so easy to them. I mean, when you watch them, it's like, man, they make it look so easy. And if you think about it, I just want to give you another analogy here that think about an opera singer. When they're singing, it just sounds so amazing. Or maybe someone in martial arts, you know, the individuals that with the highest ranked belts. We're talking about 5th degree, 6th degree, 7th degree. I don't know how high they go, but think about somebody in martial arts. And it's why that when you watch them, or you watch someone like an Olympic gymnast or an Olympic athlete, you're so amazed how effortlessly their sport looks to them. And it's the same discipline. It's something that I learned when I first was learning how to juggle or play tennis or play basketball or even play golf. I had to put in the reps. In fact, when I was learning how to juggle, I may have shared this on another podcast episode. I had to learn first how to juggle with one ball, and then I had to learn how to juggle with 2 balls. Then when I got good at that, I had to learn how to juggle with 3 balls. And then the more I did that, I could start switching up, do juggling different ways, behind my back, between my legs, bouncing the balls, whatever. Because the more reps that I put in, the easier juggling was. And so it's the same thing in anything that you're trying to get better at in life, right? If you think about your career, if you go in the first day at work, you may be good at what you do, but to do it that way for that particular employer, you have to continually do that time and time again. It's the same thing as parenting. I know now that my wife and I now, we have 2 kids. I can tell you that because our daughter's older, that we've had situations that we're dealing with our son now that I feel like we're handling better because we already had to deal with that. We've already had to practice with that with our daughter. And so it's the same thing. Let me just, if I can just break this down a little bit farther here, think about a professional tennis player or maybe a professional golfer. And this right here, this secret of repetition is really what separates an amateur from a professional. And oftentimes it's the difference between a professional that maybe like Rafael Nadal, Roger Federer, or Pete Sampras, on the tennis tour, to compared to somebody in the top 100 that's not winning a lot. Those three guys that I just mentioned, They're winning those Grand Slam tournaments because they're practicing serves, they're practicing volleys, they're practicing forehands, backhands. They're practicing all these difficult shots in different situations multiple times. That way, when they're in that situation, they don't get rattled. They know what to expect, and they just play their game. It's the same thing with a professional golfer. It's what really separates guys like Rory McIlroy, Jack Nicklaus, those top professional golfers, compared to somebody else that maybe is in the top 100 that isn't winning those big Grand Slam tournaments. And so I also want to let you know, just think about this. If you've ever played tennis, I don't know if you've ever heard this or not, but if you were to quit tennis and you were to stay away from playing tennis for 3 months, and let's say you're at level 5, okay, I'm just going to give you a level. You're at level 5, okay, let's just say 1 to 10 levels, and you're at level 5. And if you left, you weren't playing any tennis for 3 months, in order for you to get back to level 5 at that same level, they say you have to play 3 times as much. That means now you've got to practice 9 months to get back to where you were 9 months ago. That's crazy. That's right there emphasizes the importance of repetition, of practice. And it's also many times, this right here, this discipline of repetition is the difference between a salesman or a business owner getting more customers and scaling their business and another business owner who's struggling to make ends meet, struggling to get more customers because they're not putting in the reps marketing and talking to potential customers, getting their name out there, sharing their message, trying to sell their products and or their services. So again, you have to put in the reps. You have to get out there. You have to talk to people. You have to share your message to others. This is, if you're an entrepreneur, you're a business owner, whatever. And again, I mentioned this is the same kind of thing with parenting. Any aspect of life, this discipline of repetition, this discipline of practice really is crucial to improving, to getting better at that specific thing. Now, again, I mentioned earlier that you probably already knew this, and I hope that what I share with you in this episode through that story, I hope it encouraged and I hope it blessed you, and I hope it gave you some tips here. Now, before we wrap up this episode, I want to give you that quick warning, and it's a warning that I think will help you master and exercise this discipline of practice easier so you can level up to whatever it is that you're trying to get better at even faster. And the warning that I have for you is that when you're putting in those reps, when you're practicing, whatever it is that you're practicing, you have to make sure that your practice is the right practice. And what I mean by that is you just can't be putting in any type of reps. You can't just go out there and say, okay, today I'm going to go out there and I'm just going to give you a tennis analogy. I'm going to go out there and I'm going to hit 100 serves and I'm just going to toss the ball up. However the way the ball goes, I'm just going to try to hit it. No, you got to make sure that your toss is consistent in the right location and that your arm speed is the same going through, that your arm placement, that you're pronating your wrist all the way coming through. You're looking at the ball. You got to make sure that your form is good. You can't just go about it, frivolously thinking, okay, I'm just going to go out there and just put in reps and somehow I'm going to get better. You can't do that. You got to be putting in the right reps. Whatever it is, whether it's something a new skill you're trying to get better at, maybe it's a musical instrument, maybe it's your job. You got to make sure that those reps are good reps. Because if you're just putting in, lackadaisical, maybe reps that aren't really that good, you're not going to get better quicker. You're not going to get better easier, okay? And when you compare the reps that you're putting in, if they're not as good as somebody else's, they're going to be so much more polished and better at whatever that skill is than you are. And so if you're struggling right now to get better at something, I would say maybe just look at and see how well is your practice? How well are you practicing? How well those reps? Are you putting in good reps? And really kind of just gauge where you are with those practice sessions. If you feel like you're not, then I would say maybe adjust that, tweak it, and put in some better reps. Because I think if you put in some better reps, then you're going to get to where you need to get even quicker. You're going to level up even better. Okay, so part of this warning I also want to just talk about here is that with this good form, in those practice sessions, in putting in those reps, you have to be focused when you're practicing. You got to make sure that there's not any other distractions. Make sure that that practice session is a session for you that's clearly focused and it's concise and that you've got a strategy for going forward to the next practice session, whatever it is. And it's something that I do when I'm coaching my son and when I'm coaching the rest of his team and really anyone that I'm coaching in tennis or whatever, is you have to make sure that the practice that you have is harder than the real life or game scenario. You got to make sure that those practice sessions are more difficult than the real life situation. Well, I hope, guys, that what I share with you helped. I know there's a lot of the things that we could share in this podcast episode, but I just wanted to give you some encouragement here that if you're struggling right now and learning something, just stay in there, keep pushing forward. And maybe if you're a parent, if this is something that you think can help your son or daughter, I would just encourage you to share this episode with them. Maybe we'll encourage them as well in some way that, hey, if Jeff's son didn't give up on learning lacrosse and catching the lacrosse ball and getting better at that, he kept practicing, he got better, I can do that as well. And hey, as we close this podcast, I hope you were blessed by it, and I hope that you won't give up, that you're going to continue to push forward, that you're going to persevere, you're going to put in those reps, whatever it is in life that you're trying to get better at, that you're trying to improve on, and yes, even someday master it, whatever it is that you're trying to get better at. And hey, before you go, I want to remind you to join my Ignite newsletter. It's free to you. Again, I'm not going to put you in a funnel. I'm not going to try to sell you anything. It's just my way of communicating with you. Go to jeffjarena.com/newsletter. And hey, one last thing. If you're watching this podcast on my channel right now, please subscribe, like, and share the show. I would really appreciate that. And hey, if you're listening to this podcast on your favorite podcast platform right now, all you need to do is just please like, rate, and even write a review and share it with someone else you know. I would really appreciate that as well. Thanks a lot. I'll see you on the next show. God bless.